Welcome to this explainer, where we're diving straight into the fascinating world of human psychology. Have you ever just sat back, watched people, and thought, why on earth do they do that? Well, today we're going to unpack the exact psychological frameworks that try to answer that very question. So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the personality puzzle. Second, we'll define what personality actually is. Third, the type approach. Fourth, the trait approach. And finally, number 5, the interactional twist. Let's get right into it.
Section 1, the personality puzzle, origins of differences. Now we're going to start with an observation that has probably sparked some curiosity in your own home.
Seriously, why is it that two kids raised in the exact same family end up with dramatically different personalities? They don't just look different physically, they behave completely differently in the same situations. Why does one person seek out these crazy high adrenaline adventures while their own sibling would way rather just stay in, read a book, watch some TV, or play cards? It really forces us to ask, are these differences locked in for life, or are they just short-lived and specific to a certain situation? Section 2. What is personality? Defining the core. Before we try to solve where these differences come from, we need to know exactly what psychologists mean when they use this word.
We toss the word personality around a lot, sometimes even judging it based on how someone looks. But scientifically, it's much deeper. Personality represents the unique and relatively stable qualities that characterize an individual's behavior across different situations over a long period of time. So if someone is generally an honest person, they're likely to stay honest no matter the time or the situation. It is all about consistency in how we behave, think, and feel.
Let's break that down into its core features. Personality actually has both physical and psychological components, and the way it's expressed is entirely unique to you. Its main features, they don't change easily over time. But here's the really cool part. It's dynamic. It's a stable core that somehow manages to adapt to whatever our environment throws at us. And because of that stability, once we really figure out someone's personality, we can actually predict how they're going to behave. So to crack this behavioral mystery, psychologists generally look through two main lenses. On one side, we have the type approach. This tries to understand human personality by looking at broad patterns and grouping people into buckets based on their similarities. On the flip side, we have the trait approach. This one focuses on specific psychological attributes, things like shyness or friendliness, where individuals differ in really consistent and stable ways. Section 3, the type approach, behavioral patterns. Let's see how grouping people into broad categories actually helps us understand behavior. A classic example of this is Carl Jung's famous typology. He placed individuals into two very clear buckets. First, introverts. These are folks who prefer to be alone, tend to avoid others, and usually withdraw when faced with emotional conflicts. Extroverts, on the other hand, are sociable, outgoing, and they actually react to stress by losing themselves in social activity and engaging with people. It's a broad, sweeping categorization, but honestly, it's one we probably use in everyday life all the time. Another really famous one comes from researchers Friedman and Roseman. They classified people into type A and type B personalities while they were looking for psychosocial risk factors. Type A folks, they are highly motivated, lack patience, always feel like they're running out of time, and are just constantly in a hurry. The researchers actually found that this go-go-go type A personality carried a higher risk for hypertension and coronary heart disease. Then you have type B, which is essentially the exact opposite. They don't have those type A traits, they're just far more relaxed and easygoing. Section 4, the trait approach, building blocks. Now, neatly sorting people into those simple type buckets definitely has its limitations, because human behavior is incredibly complex. We just don't fit perfectly into boxes. And that is exactly where the trait approach comes in, aiming to find the actual building blocks of personality. Gordon Allport was a huge pioneer here. He broke personality down into a hierarchy. At the very top, you have cardinal traits. These are highly generalized goals that basically drive a person's entire life. Think Mahatma Gandhi and nonviolence. Next down are central traits. These are the pervasive ones, the words you'd use in a letter of recommendation, like warm or diligent. And finally, at the bottom, we have secondary traits. These are much less generalized, like preferring a certain style of clothing or really loving mangoes. Allport argued that these traits are the filter between a situation and how we ultimately choose to respond. Other psychologists took this even further by measuring these building blocks empirically. Raymond Cattell used some heavy-duty statistical techniques on a massive list of descriptive adjectives in the English language. And guess what? He found that all of our complex, messy behaviors could be boiled down to just 16 stable primary source traits. Basically, these 16 traits interact with each other to create the huge variety of surface behaviors we see every single day.
Section 5. Interactional Twist. Power of Situations. Okay, so modern psychology actually throws a pretty massive wrench into both of the theories we just talked about. Take a look at this quote. The cross-situational consistency of traits is found to be quite low. Think about that for a second. The interactional approach argues that our internal traits might not be nearly as stable as we like to think. Instead, it suggests that situational characteristics play a massively important role in deciding how we act.
To really get how compelling situations can be, just watch people in vastly different environments. Think about the chaos of a busy market versus the strict silence of a courtroom, or the solemnity of a place of worship. You might act completely dependent in one and fiercely independent in another. You might be aggressive or totally submissive. And it's not necessarily because you have a fixed internal trait telling you to be that way, but because of the specific external rewards or threats in that specific moment. The environment literally pulls the behavior right out of you.
So, I'm going to leave you with this to chew on. The next time you're wondering why a sibling, a friend, or a coworker is acting out of character, ask yourself, are they expressing a deep biological personality trait? Are they just acting out their ingrained type? Or is the situation they're in right now forcing their hand? Essentially, is it who they are, or is it simply where they are? Thanks for diving into this explainer with me. Keep observing and definitely keep questioning.